Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. Good morning, lovely listeners. This morning, it's Dr. Lucy here, and I am again by myself. But I have a wonderful guest for you to listen to and for me to have a conversation with. I feel very blessed to have this lady in my life. She's in our inner circle in the Momentum membership, and I would like to introduce you, lovelies, to Robyn Devon. Good morning, Robyn. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Lucy. And you?
I'm very well, thank you. Tell me how your week's been going.
Crazy hectic, getting ready for Easter, and we're in lockdown in Queensland, but good. Yeah, no complaints really.
Excellent. It's interesting, isn't it, that there's that, probably a little bit of stress in your household then with an unexpected lockdown, planning to go away but maybe not, so some uncertainty in there, trying to fit everything in before Easter starts. Or doesn't. I mean, Easter's going to start, but the holiday. So yeah, in the past, tell me, how would you have gone with this sort of situation?
I probably would have hit up Woolies at the start of lockdown and bought 4 half-dozen hot cross buns to just survive on those for the week to keep the kids calm, and some chocolate too would have been chucked in there. But this time I didn't. I went and stocked up on cheese, eggs, and some more cream and some veggies.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I would love it if you would perhaps share with our listeners your, journey. And it's probably familiar to many of them, but just tell us a little bit about your relationship with food and your weight loss journey over the years.
Okay, so I was the quintessential fat kid at school, and then a fat teenager, and had lots of self-image and especially self-esteem issues. So bounced from about 16, maybe 14 years of age, I think is probably the first time I remember going on a diet specifically. And for the rest of my life up until now, I'm 42, has been one diet after another. I've done Healthy Slimmers Fellowship and Weight Watchers and Light and Easy, and everyone that you can think of I've probably tried. Shakes and Tony Ferguson and the whole bit. It got to a point post having 2 children that I just couldn't deal with it anymore, and so I signed up and paid a fortune and had gastric sleeve surgery in 2017. Then the first 2 years was awesome. The first 2.5 years was pretty good, and then the weight started to creep back on again. So I'd lost 35 kilos, and all of a sudden I'd only lost 20 kilos without even thinking about it and without paying any attention to it. And so that freaked me out. It freaked my husband out too, because of how much money we'd spent on the sleeve surgery, which was supposed to be the answer, but it's only a tool, and it didn't work for me. Well, it did work. I just didn't take that tool and use it. So then my beautiful cousin found Real Life Medicine and recommended them, and I listened to one of the first videos with her, and then that was it. Suddenly this was a complete 360 of everything I had ever been told on any diet. We can eat fat, we can eat cheese, and it's just the bread that's going to spike our insulin. So for me, it was the medical knowledge, and I just was so hungry for that information, so hungry for the information, and so just devoured it, and then I had to go back and devour it again because I felt like I wasn't retaining it enough. So that was October, and it's now April almost, and I just can't imagine eating any other way now. It's so easy. This is not a diet. There is no point. I am not a macro counter. And that's the thing that I love the most. Too many years of counting calories, using calorie tracker apps, counting points, having those little Weight Watcher point books in my handbag weighing me down, drove me nuts, absolutely drove me crazy, to the point where I cannot stand macros now. And if you try and tell me I have to do a macro, then I'm not going to be interested. And for 6 months now, I've eaten this way. Weight is still dropping off, and I'm plateauing at the moment, but that's not a negative like it used to always be. I know it's a new set point. it's so easy. It's not a diet. And that's the biggest plus for me.
Yeah. You know what? You have just articulated what so many people, including myself, have gone through. Just that diet culture of counting and tracking, and really you're not actually in touch with your hunger or why we eat, your fuel, your nutrients, but nothing. It's all just about the points or the calories or the numbers. And it's just this crazy numbers game and numbers on the scales as well. And it does your head in.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I remember one of our Weight Watchers leaders telling us to put down dessert at the start of the day, write down dessert at the start of the day, and then track backwards from that so that you could still have your dessert, because you knew you had to white knuckle your way through the day by living on, lettuce leaves and celery and tin tuna. No one wants tin tuna anymore because of those years of dieting, even though it's so good for it. But you could get through the day, you could white knuckle your way just to get that skinny cow dessert at the end of the day. Like, stupid. It was so easy to give up.
You've used one of my favourite sayings of white knuckling. And what white knuckling is using willpower. And the thing about the majority of us yo-yo dieters is that we have willpower in buckets. We have used willpower, but it always runs out. And you always get to a point where you just can't keep doing it, largely because you're hungry. And that calorie model that we've talked about in earlier podcasts leads you on a path to nowhere. So the other interesting thing I'd like to have a little chat about, Rob, is the gastric sleeve. So there are many doctors out there who say that the only way to lose weight is to have a gastric sleeve. And the promise, and I'm using my air quotes for those of you who can't see me, the promise is that's your permanent weight loss solution. What do you think about that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've got a few recently. I had a friend ask me if she should recommend it to her sister, and I was surprised at my level of reaction. I was like, no. And then calm down. Maybe it'll be okay for her. But I actually shocked myself and her, because now, like, my intake will always be restricted. So I will find it probably hard to ever get to OMAD because I just can't eat enough quantity. But that aside, it is only a tool. And the surgeons do say that it's only a tool, but there's no ramifications for eating a packet of Tim Tams. Like, the weight just slips off anyway, or eating, a family packet of chips. You can do that. They slide through, and it restricts your quantity, but it doesn't talk about quality at all. It doesn't talk about nutrients. You're then on multivitamins for the rest of your life. And the actual process is horrible too. Like, getting used to it, you get so sick at times. And what we're doing with low carb real food eating doesn't cost $15,000 up front that you have to find, and is doable for life, Gastric sleeve's good for 2 or 3 years, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, certainly there are people out there who have a gastric sleeve, and for them it may well be life-saving. But the interesting thing is that there seems to be very little attention paid to the quality of your food afterwards. And I suspect that I know a lot of people are advised to drink Optifast and before and after, which is really...
You have to do a VLCD for 14 days. Everyone that I know has had to do that.
Yeah. So you do a very low calorie diet and Optifast, and the idea is to empty the liver of all its fat before your surgery. And then you have the sleeve, which is a gastrectomy, so they remove a large portion of the stomach. And it's called a sleeve because the remaining part of the stomach looks a bit like your sleeve, like your shoulder sleeve, which I'm going to tell you, and I feel a bit dumb saying this, but I didn't realise that's why it was called a sleeve. I kind of had this idea that they put something over the top of your stomach, like a sleeve, like a piece of hose. It's actually amazing. I reckon you would find a lot of people don't realise that they're chopping your stomach off into the shape of a sleeve. But the interesting thing I think for so many people is really addressing that psychological relationship that we have with food. That needs to be done, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I paid extra. I went to a better clinic for all of my research because they had a psychologist 4 times, once before and 3 times post-surgery. But she just wanted to talk about how am I going with meal planning, and nothing that actually physically addressed why I eat. Am I eating when I'm hungry? I'm eating when I'm bored? Or I mean, you saw a dietitian too, and they would just be like, eat fruit and veg and don't eat Tim Tams. And you're like, you're telling me everything I've known for the last 30 years anyway, so I'm tapped out. But the psychologist really was not, it was a waste of time because she didn't address anything that has been addressed in the last 6 months in my life.
Yeah.
And that I have learnt in the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's disappointing, isn't it?
It was.
So what do you think are the biggest lessons you've learnt now in the last 6 months that you could perhaps share with the listeners?
That weight loss or your metabolism is all about your hormones, and it's not maths, it's science. I love that. It's not calorie in versus calorie out. It is what each type of food does to your hormones, therefore what comes next. Have you spiked your insulin or not? That's probably the main thing that it boggles my mind that we don't know it, and that it's not public knowledge. I guess I've become a lot more savvy to marketing. That's a big thing that has, I didn't realise how sucked in I was. I prioritise sleep. I take time out for, you guys call it meditation, I call it prayer. Same. It's time out to reflect and to get out off the rat race wheel, So there's so much, but I think the biggest thing is the fact that it's hormones. And if I do go and grab that hot cross bun and eat, it's going to wake up fluffy, and it's going to spike my insulin, and it's going to make it harder for me to stay on track with my health goals for the next few days. Just for that one, 30 seconds of eating a hot cross bun or a chocolate Easter egg or something, it's not worth it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The old way of this measuring your points so that you could start with your dessert didn't teach anything about that dopamine reward center that we love to talk about, and that how our brain then needs a little bit more each day of that, whatever it is, that little hit. And whether it's sugar or artificial sugars, it's still there. And look, I remember thinking, again, being, you probably are too, Rob. I'm a Weight Watchers Life member. I could get to goal. That was not a problem. I just couldn't stay there because it was always white knuckling, and I never learnt to change my brain around the idea that you, as a human, you are the custodian of your body, and your body is at your brain's mercy. And so learning to manage your mind around that, not without feeling deprived. I mean, that's really the key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Rob, you're a mum of kids, and you've got a husband. Tell me, how have the family gone with this?
So there was a fair bit of resistance at first. So I was doing separate meals, or I was modifying what we would have: steak and mashed potato and veggies, and I would leave off the potato, that kind of thing at first. But now there's just no potato in the house. It's a slow burn is what I'm finding. It's a slow process to get them over and on board. I'm trying to be gentle with my husband because he's 40 years old and hasn't dieted one day in his life. He needs to watch what he's doing because he's just been diagnosed with fatty liver. So he needs to start thinking about it, but I'm finding a fair bit of resistance, and I think psychologically it comes from the fact that he's never ever had to think about what goes in and what he's eating. So it's a slow burn, but as things are leaving this house, they're not being replaced. So there was Milo in this house when I started. We haven't had Milo since before Christmas. I buy 2 litres of milk a week now. I used to buy that every second day. The kids just aren't, I'm not giving them a glass of milk with dinner because I know that. It's just giving them a glass of sugar, There's quite a few things that I'm changing. Sandwiches are becoming twice a week, not 5 times a week in their lunchbox, and that will whittle down even further and further. My daughter, she's only 7, but she was going down the exact same trajectory as I was. She was going to be the heavy girl in school, and so I feel like I can change not just by example, but physically what is going to happen to her, and she's not going to have the self-esteem issues. Not that everything to do with your self-esteem is related to your weight, but it has a massive bearing when other kids tease you. So I feel like I can help change her. So we just, the pasta meals have gone. I've used a few different pasta alternatives and they've actually been accepted quite well. But I just feel like if I did it a line in the sand and definitely no more carb type thing, I'd get a lot more resistance. But it's just one thing by one thing. We have cauliflower mash instead of potato mash sometimes now. And they're embracing more and more, and they just know that, and they're constantly asking, my children are asking, they're 8 and 7 years old, is this healthy, Mum? Is this healthy? And they'll be like, oh, it's healthy for us, but not for you. I'm like, well, no, that's what I used to say. Now it's like, no, that's not healthy for your hormones. And having conversations around that it's amazing what little sponges they are.
Oh, totally. And look, we know that insulin resistance runs in families. We now know the effect of eating high sugar diets. And when I use the word sugar, as you would know, Rob, I often mean not just processed white sugar. It includes all our carbohydrates, whether that sugar comes from potatoes or more processed foods like chips and lollies. At the end of the day, it all gets broken down to glucose. And for some people, they are more resistant or more intolerant, I guess is the word, of those carbohydrates. And so I think, it's really important with kids, and Mary and I have talked about this, that we use words like healthy and strong. We don't, it's not about restriction and good and bad foods, because again, you can, kids, if they think something's naughty, well, they might sneak off and do it. So, it's about empowering them with their choices so that and I think one of the things is it's also about providing an alternative narrative, because at the moment they are bombarded with ads on telly, there's ads on billboards, there's Macca's advertising every 5 minutes. They are bombarded with the idea that this processed high sugary junk food is delicious and the most incredible thing and the most important thing for them. It becomes their currency. And so it's about, changing that story for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's wonderful. The one thing that I've stopped pushing is fruit. I used to constantly push fruit, especially on my son. He doesn't like it. My daughter would be a fruit bat. And now I've just reduced how much fruit that we have available in the house. I still want them to have a bit if they want it. But I actually end up speaking to their teacher and saying, instead of fruit snack, I'm going to be sending cheese and ham for my daughter, and her teacher is fine with it.
Yeah, I know. I would love the schools to change fruit break to protein break, because protein is really, I think it doesn't matter which diet philosophy you follow, protein, just everybody, I think, accepts the importance of protein in our diet. There are no low protein diets. That would be a disaster for us. So definitely protein break would be Wonderful.
My son's very keen. He swapped his green apple, which is what he would have every day, for a boiled egg. As long as there's salt on it, Mum, apparently. That's fine.
And you know what? And again, when you take all the processing out of their diets, we can add salt to food like that. You know, you can add salt to whole food when you're not also having, you know, processed food, which is very high in salt. So it really makes real food taste amazing. So, Rob, I think the thing is that, you know, if someone like you who has done every diet known to man, who has gone down the gastric sleeve route and still found it difficult, if you can then change your mindset around and you're losing weight steadily, I mean, you've been amazing, and we don't need to talk numbers because that's not our jam here, but I do know that you have lost a significant amount. And I would just like to say to any listeners out there that are feeling like it's, you know, it's too late for them, they've tried it and it's never going to work. It will. It will. It's just getting the right tools.
Yep. Just the educating yourself. And this is education that counts more than anything, more than my bachelor degree at school. That hasn't done anywhere near as much as this has done for my life and perpetually for my children's lives. That's the part I love, is that I can not be an example of a yo-yo dieter, but I can be an example of someone healthy who can kick the soccer ball and stuff with them, which has always been what I wanted, never been attainable until now.
So good to hear, Rob. So good. I'm so thrilled for you. And I just think we often talk about changing, you know, people have changed their future, but you're right. You have changed not just your future, but your children's future. And it's wonderful. The focus of Low Carb Real Food is so powerful.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lucy.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for, you know, coming on the show and sharing your story. Robyn, it has been a delight, and I would encourage anybody, if you've got two options. You can go, you know, make a decision, line in the sand, and that's what you're going to do. You can go slowly. You can change your families. You know, you can go in and empty out all the pantries if you want. You can do whatever suits you. Just start. That's all you need. One step.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I went hardcore from the start. And I found it far easier than I think my family's going to find it, because I got rid of the sugar straight away.
Oh, yeah, that addictive white powder.
If I can give anyone advice and they want to listen, I would say just try it, but try it properly. Don't go half-assed. Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah. I always say that. Yes. Yeah. No half-assing around. Just get in there, rip the Band-Aid off, and you will find it is just so liberating. You are no longer trapped in the clutches of sugar addiction.
Yep, absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, lovelies, I will see you next week, probably with Dr. Mary. We have a wonderful, you know, foray of guests that we are interviewing over the next few weeks, but otherwise, we will see you soon. Bye now. Gorgeous ones, if you would like to work with us, the next 12-week Mind-Body Rebalance starts May the 2nd. Doors for enrolment open April 26, and we have bonuses for those who enroll in the first 3 days. On top of that, lovely podcast listeners, we have a special bonus for you. If you enter the code podcast, you will get $200 off the cost of the course. We are thrilled with the way this course has been going and the feedback we've been getting from our participants, and we would love for you to join us there too. For further information and to sign up for the course, head to our website at rlmedicine.com. Take care, wonderful ones, and have an incredible week.